Hey Soma, good morning.
Good morning, Orod. How are you?
I'm good. I don't know if you can notice or not, but I'm growing my hair again. And I would suggest everyone to just listen to podcasts rather than go to YouTube and watch me in the next 6 months at least.
Okay, that's a good advice, I would say.
Yeah, how's the weather in Sydney? Here it's really freezing today.
Oh, it's the same. We had 35 yesterday, and today it's what, 16?
Yeah, yesterday was raining really heavily, and it was Formula One final, and I thought they're gonna cancel it, but apparently it happened.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Dedication?
exactly. Lots of money. If I think if they reschedule it, they lose a lot of money.
Yeah, everything is at stake. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So, we haven't published actually for a while. I promised to publish our
In a
last
week.
episode that we recorded, I think, in January,
Okay.
tomorrow, and hopefully from this week we back to our weekly schedule. Okay, so today actually I want to share my experience that I recently had with a client.
Hmm.
And they use task rather than visualizing the workflow to progress each user story.
Oh, wow.
And it caused some lots of problem actually. So yeah, I just wanted to talk to you and see if you had this experience or not.
Yes, I have seen that. Especially when it's a big project. I'm calling it a project, not a
Mhm.
product. You can
Yeah.
see the difference because the mindset is very much project oriented, which is like, it's if anything goes wrong, it's not my fault, it's your fault. And if there are a lot of specialists involved, so I've seen that people track tasks instead of, again, visualizing the workflow and the different work stages.
Mhm.
That way, it is easier for people to not take ownership and accountability.
Okay, so based on your experience, people created tasks
Hmm.
for each individual to ensure that this task assigned to Orod completed and then
Mm.
threw
Mm.
over the fence and
Mm.
stuff like that. Yeah, that's actually similar. I think my experience also was similar. Plus, I think lack of understanding about the definition of workflow.
Mm.
So basically what they had a very simple board, to do, active, done.
Mm.
And so that's the user story kind of board.
Yeah.
Then they broke each user story into maybe 10 to 15 tasks
Mm.
for different activities. Some of the task was basically, individual work. Some of them more like a group work, but still they created a task.
Mm.
And the problem it caused, because to be honest, I talked to them about 2 months ago and I said, okay, let's visualize the workflow. And they said,
Mm.
no, we need to have tasks to track individual progress. And I was like, okay, sure, whatever. And then they reached to the point that each person
Mm.
had maybe 70 to 100 tasks.
Wow. Okay.
And that was because not all the task was active, right? But still
Mm.
assigned to individual. And when
Mm.
they look at the task board, they were like, I have 100 tasks, right? So
Mm.
which one I need to focus on, right?
Mm.
And they raise it as a concern, and I say, okay, I don't know what to do. It's just too much.
Mm.
And last week, I was like, okay, that's good. Now people are not happy, so maybe it's time for me to jump in and run a workshop to understand the problem and see if we can improve it.
Mm.
And then, as part of that, I asked first question, okay, what does workflow mean to you, right? And actually, most of them answer the textbook correct answer, right? Workflow, visualize how workflow through the system stuff.
Mm.
However, a few people mentioned that, we need task. to
mm,
um, track the progress. Right?
mm,
So, at the end of the workshop, fortunately, everyone, and I'm talking about around 20 people,
mm,
agreed to visualize the workflow
mm,
properly and create tasks if it's
mm.
required, right? Not create tasks for everything and standardize all the tasks and assign it to individual and stuff like that. But if it's required, it's okay, we still want to create that. I was like, okay, that's fine. But everyone again agreed that we need to look at the board with the proper workflow.
Mm,
And those tasks mostly are activities of each user story. And as part of our policies, I documented, the work completed when this done,
done. Yeah.
right? You
Mm,
documented, someone review, whatever, right?
mm,
So rather than create all those tasks, we just put them in a very simple policy and say, okay, this is the definition of this stage. When
mm.
it's completed, then it can go to the next one.
Yes.
Right? And actually, the workshop went really well with people,
Good.
and almost everyone were like, "Yeah, that probably can solve our current problem."
Mm. Well, that's a win, I would say, because in my experience, most of the time people do not realize there is a problem. And as per the change management principle in Kanban, you really have to get the buy-in from people
Hmm.
for putting in any change, right? So the first point is that people need to be aware there
Hmm.
is a gap or a problem and improvement is required or some changes are required. So what you're talking about, I really like to go back to the why people are doing this. Like, and I'm a big fan of human psychology because
Hmm.
I believe every action, every behavior is kind of governed by that, at least for humans, I would say, not for AI. So when people try to simplify their workflow or the work stages, right? The simple definition is that the dominant work stages needs to be visualized so that you understand how the work is flowing, but also at the same time, what are the bottlenecks? Where
Hmm.
is it getting stuck? Why is this not smooth? And I've seen that people do the column the in progress, which is the most complex one because in progress could mean 10 different things to 10 different
Yeah.
people. And even the workflows, like the work stages, could be very different based on your kind of work that you're doing. But when you try to simplify in progress and put it here, it is also a way, it's a mechanism of hiding and not taking ownership. Because I could go to the daily sync and tell you, oh, my work is in progress,
Hmm.
right? You can see that. Yes, so much, the task, ticket, whatever you're calling it, is in progress.
Hmm.
And that is it. However, if we have a Kanban board, like a proper one, where we are visualizing each work stage,
Hmm.
you would know. You don't even have to ask me. You would know that maybe my work is, like in review.
Hmm.
Review is dependent on a third party or someone.
Yeah.
And then maybe you can provide some help. You can ask questions, relevant questions, which is not for micromanaging, but to really help me out. That how can I get that done faster? What are the things that's blocking me? So when that conversation happens, that's the proper one that we always recommend or look forward to in a team setup
Hmm.
or any level in an organization, because the more we can visualize, the more information and feedback the Kanban boards are giving us,
Hmm.
and we can help to build more predictable systems.
Hmm.
But the moment we try to simplify those work stages and put it into like doing,
Yeah.
to do, doing, done, or in progress, done, we are not doing justice with the Kanban board.
Yeah, basically it's not the Kanban board because it doesn't send the signal, right? So
Exactly.
for example, in my scenario, we had 30 user story active, right?
Mm, mm,
Yes, of course, all these 30 user stories are active,
yeah.
but which one actually waiting for someone to review? which one
Exactly.
is waiting for the business to endorse, which one is
Yes.
waiting or blocked. You know what I mean?
Mm,
So it was very difficult to understand this,
mm,
the status of each work. You know what I mean?
mm,
So I just want to share some of the benefit or the approaches that I use.
mm,
First, as I said, I had to wait for almost 2 months so
mm.
people realize that there is a problem because
Yeah.
at the beginning they resist. Okay,
Mm, mm,
and that's one of the Kanban principle as part of the static so source of dissatisfaction, right? So we always
yeah.
start with source of dissatisfaction. So
Mm,
I would suggest people rather than push the changes, even if it's right or
yeah.
you think it's right,
Mm,
wait for people to realize that there is a problem.
mm,
Then they're happy to accept the change. If they, as you mentioned, if they don't see it as a problem, then maybe it's not even a problem for them. Maybe
mm,
I think it's a problem, but not for everyone else.
mm.
So wait, be patient until people realize there is a problem. Get everyone agreed on the solution.
Yeah,
Let them talk, let them participate, use different
that,
facilitation skills rather than give the solution to them.
that
And
is right.
a few benefit of visualizing the workflow and some disadvantage or cons I want to share. One benefit, as you mentioned, Soma, we can easily realize that the work that stay in some stages or blocked or they've been there for a very long time, so we can
Mm,
start tracking, the lead time or cycle time, whatever people want to call it,
mm,
the blocked items and stuff like that. Also gives some sort of ownership to people, so people easily can see which work they need to focus on, which
yeah.
work is ready for me and stuff like that, rather than
Mm,
keep going and find it and ask people, is this ready? Why it's assigned to me? Why is this? Blah blah blah. So now
mm,
they're clear about what is the definition of drafting, what is the definition of internal review, what is the definition of business review, you know what I mean, and who is responsible of that, who needs to go and follow up with business, who needs to review this and stuff like that.
There's another thing though, like what you said, it's really good idea to do that. But I sometimes try another workaround
Hmm.
because like when people have different tasks to track,
Hmm.
it also gives me the idea or the vibe of that they are very much into resource utilization mode. They really need to appear busy in order to get that approval from their manager, let's say. Okay. So, and definitely, like, based on the change management principle, you shouldn't be pushing those changes because if the system, if the current environment and the culture is like that, you cannot do anything to pull them out immediately. You have to wait for the environment and the culture to support the changes. So, what I try to do is that ask them that let's do like a user story. If
Hmm.
we are talking into like, agile terms or Jira terms, let's create a user story and then do all the tasks underneath it. So the definition of done or the exit criteria for that user story would be that will be considered done when all the tasks are done. So everyone is still having the ownership of the task that they were creating, but then it is supported by a customer outcome because service, like delivering excellent service or product, is the main aim here, right?
Hmm.
So it doesn't matter how you do it, but it's just one step ahead where they can also see when we are visualizing in daily sync, daily Kanban meeting, or daily stand up, the user story moving through different stages
Yep,
and the task stays underneath. And
that's
then
right.
we start having conversation about the user story, not the
Yes, not the
individual
task.
task.
Yeah.
In that way, it is just like helping people to shift their mindset that, the user story or the outcome of the user story is way bigger than the
Mhm.
individual task. And we need to work together to achieve that. So that's some
Yeah.
like one practice that I try to get some like good outcome or just planting those seeds that, okay, like let's focus on the outcome rather than the individual task.
Hmm.
That's all
Yeah,
I.
no, that's absolutely correct. However, that's, I think, based on my experience, that's the next step, right? Because still, based on the teams and organization maturity, for example, this client that I'm talking about, they still think about individual tasks, right?
Yeah.
Because each column
Mm.
represents basically different skills that required, right? So,
Oh.
and the teamwork that you mentioned,
Mm. Mm.
so adding the whip limit can
Mm.
help with that, but they are not in the stage to even understand the whip limit, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about a very, very immature organization in
Mhm.
Kanban maturity model, exactly like
Z-
level zero kind of thing,
Zero. Yeah.
right?
Let's clarify one more thing though,
Mm,
or before you continue. So what we are talking about, so now I understand, and maybe this will be helpful for our audience or viewers. You are talking about a board which, like each column is also capturing the specialist activities. So it
absolutely.
is not a continuous workflow
Yeah.
or where you can visualize that how the work is flowing.
Yeah, but there are some group activity in different stages. For example, review, it's a group activity between
Yeah,
reviewer and the doer, right?
yeah, yeah.
Um, but you know what I'm saying?
Mm.
But whip limit, I haven't even introduced because it's too early for them, right?
Yeah,
So I started just introducing one basically small improvement at a time. So for
yeah.
now, from 3 column, now we have, I don't know, maybe 7 or something column.
Mm.
Right?
Mm.
Um, and one of the cons that someone mentioned
Mm.
when we create the board, then
Mm.
that person was like, "So, Orod, are you talking about we need to have all these stages or column on the board? Don't you think it's too much?" And I said, "Well, but maybe it's too much, but this is your workflow.
Mm.
So either you can hide it, right? Like swipe everything under the carpet and say, okay, no, I don't want to see it, right? And then
Yeah.
go through those 100 tasks and stuff like that.
Mm.
Or just visualize it. I understand it, it's more than the current one. Maybe you need to scroll a little bit to the
Yeah.
right to see all
Yeah.
the board. Um, but this is the current workflow. This is how your work actually go through the system,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, totally.
Um, and also the next step for me
Mm.
is to give them a little bit time to practice with this board and
Mhm.
then run another workshop and ask them, okay, what is the definition of task? Why do we need task? What problem we try to solve with task, right? Because my understanding based on the conversation I had with them, they wanted task to track the progress. So
Yes.
now the user story move on the board. So the
Mm.
question is, do we still need those tasks to track the progress
Mm.
or not? Right? And if the answer is no, probably we don't need, then maybe we don't create tasks anymore. Right? And people rather than focus on 100 tasks, which they don't even know which one is ready and which one is not, then they can focus on
Mm.
user stories. So less admin work for everyone.
Mm.
Uh,
Mm.
more clarity and less
Mm.
confusion, I think that saves people's time because when people's confused, then they need to find the work and all those kind of thing, and that
Exactly.
waste a lot of time.
I think that's really valuable because you are at the moment trying this out with real people in a real team scenario.
Mm.
And these are the experiences that we try and share in our podcast so that, people from
Yeah,
everywhere, like
and I
all around
think
the world, can
to be honest,
benefit.
I think that's probably a common
It's a common one.
it's very
Yeah,
common. So yeah, I think hopefully this experience help people to have a
definitely.
little bit
Yeah,
better understanding or have or change their approach.
yeah.
It took me, as I said, took me more than 2 months. But to be honest, I'm very happy with what I
The progress.
achieved.
Yeah. Well, look, there's another thing that we should be adding to this. The first step that everyone needs to keep in mind is to have patience in this kind of scenarios because nothing is going to happen overnight. You can start applying the Kanban principles and practices, but the result, the outcome will definitely take time because it involves real people.
Hmm.
And whenever it is about real people, real changes, real cultural changes, it's
Exactly.
always going to take time. So
Absolutely.
that's the key message.
So that's a really good one, and I think it's the right time to wrap up this session. So, as Soma you mentioned, always be patient. Don't push the change to people. Wait for people to realize that there is a problem and get everyone to agree on the solution.
Mm,
And maybe rather than focus too much to create lots of tasks to
mm.
track the progress, try to visualize the actual workflow on your
Work.
board so
Mm.
you can track it easily.
Yeah. Workflow means work stages in this case, so dominant work stages. That's the key.
All
But
right, good one. Thanks, Soma. Is there anything
thanks a
else you want
lot.
to add?
No, that's all, and we will try and come more regularly from now onwards. Thank
All
you.
right. Thanks, Soma, and thanks everyone for listening and watching. And we'll come back next week.
Thank you.